The station felt different the next morning. People walked through the long halls with nervous energy, whispering about the power failure that almost shut everything down. Every group, miners, traders, guards, travelers, spoke the same words: a human saved us. But Evan did not walk like a hero. He walked quietly, hands in his pockets, head slightly lowered as if he didn't want extra attention. He wasn't used to people staring at him. Back on Earth, he was simply a man who liked fixing broken things. Lyra, however, felt the change everywhere she went. Customers whispered when she passed. Her coworkers kept glancing at her with curious eyes. Even the chef stared at her a little too long as she arranged plates on the counter. "How did you two end up in the tunnels?" the chef asked. Evan went to help, Lyra replied softly. "I followed." The chef raised an eyebrow. "You? In tunnels? With sparks and alarms and shaking walls?" Lyra's cheeks glowed faint blue. "Yes," he smirked. "I didn't know you had that courage." She lowered her antennas shyly. "I didn't know either." Before the chef could ask more questions, the diner door slid open and Evan stepped inside. He looked tired, but he smiled when he saw Lyra. Her heart beat faster. She had not expected to react this way, but something inside her changed since the incident. "Morning," Evan said. "Good morning," Lyra replied softly. The chef crossed his arms. "Human, you caused trouble yesterday." Evan blinked. "Trouble? I thought I helped." "You did help," the chef admitted. "But now everyone wants to see you. They are curious. They want to talk to the human who fixed what the engineers could not." Evan sighed lightly. "I didn't mean to attract attention." "Too late," the chef said, tapping the counter. "Customers keep asking where you are." Evan rubbed the back of his neck. "Great. Attention makes me nervous." Lyra smiled a little. "You? Nervous? But you ran through the tunnels fearlessly." "That was different," he said. "Fixing things is easy. Talking to strangers is harder." Lyra laughed softly. It was a gentle sound, and Evan liked it more than he expected. A growing crabby midday. The diner was full, more full than Lyra had ever seen. People didn't just come for food, they came to see him. Some tried to sit close to his table. Others whispered while pretending to read menus. A group of young travelers even tried to ask him questions. But Evan politely smiled and said he was just a normal person who fixed a normal problem. But the attention only grew. Lyra noticed Evan shifting uncomfortably. He didn't want praise. He didn't want to be the center of the room. She approached him. "If the crowd bothers you, you can come behind the counter." Evan looked at her gratefully. "Thanks. I appreciate that." She guided him behind the counter. Her people would consider that a private space, but she didn't mind. She wanted him to feel safe. "You can stand here," she said. "It will be quieter." "It's perfect," Evan replied. Their shoulders brushed for a moment, and Lyra stepped back quickly, surprised by the warm spark inside her chest. Sudden darkness, everything seemed to return to normal for a short time. Customers ate. The chef cooked. Evan helped Lyra move some supplies. Then the lights flickered once, twice, 3 times. Then the station went completely dark. The diner gasped. Some people grabbed tables. A child screamed. Lyra froze in place, her breath caught in her throat. Darkness overwhelmed Valari's senses. They needed light to feel balanced, but Evan stayed calm. "Stay where you are," he said loudly, his voice steady. "Emergency backup lights will turn on soon." And just like he predicted, faint red lights came on seconds later, but the sight that awaited them was far from comforting. Outside the diner window, the main power ring flickered with weak sparks, bright and unstable. The entire station seemed to tremble again. A new alarm echoed overhead. "Warning, overload detected in main junction. Immediate technical assistance required." Lyra felt fear grip her chest. "Not again," she whispered. Evan stepped away from the counter, eyes focused on the red lights. He exhaled sharply. The engineers didn't finish repairs. The overload is building again. The chef panicked. "What do we do?" Evan turned to Lyra. "I need to reach the command deck this time. That's where the main reset is." Lyra swallowed hard. Her hands shook. "The command deck? But that place is heavily restricted." "I know," Evan said. "But without a manual reset, the station will lose all power." Customers panicked again. Everyone looked to Evan like he was the only calm being in the room. Lyra took a deep breath. I will go with you. Evan shook his head. It's dangerous. She stepped closer. Then it is better if you don't go alone. He looked into her eyes. She wasn't trembling now. She was determined. Okay, he said softly. Stay close. Racing to the command deck, the halls outside were filled with worried travelers. Some ran toward safe zones. Others pressed themselves against the walls as the floor shook again. Evan moved quickly, guiding Lyra with one hand on her shoulder to steady her. She focused on his warm touch to keep her courage steady. When they reached the lift to the command deck, a guard stopped them. You can't go up. Only engineers and command staff. The station is about to lose power. Evan cut in. I can fix it. The guard hesitated. Are you the human from yesterday? Yes, Evan said. The guard opened the lift door instantly. Go. They need help up there. The lift shot upward, stopping at the top floor. When the doors opened, chaos filled the air. Engineers ran between consoles. Sparks flew from one of the walls. A senior officer was shouting orders. Everyone stopped when they saw Evan. That's him. One engineer whispered. The human who stabilized the ring. Let him through. Evan walked toward the main console as if he had done this 1,000 times. Lyra followed, her heart pounding. What do you need? The officer asked. Evan read the panels quickly. The overload is coming from two sides now. The resets must be triggered together. We don't have enough staff to reach both sides. The officer said. Evan cracked his knuckles. I can't. Lyra stared at him. Again, he smiled at her. Again, the twin reset room quieted. The engineers watched him. The officers held their breath. Lyra felt her heart pounding against her ribs. Evan grabbed a portable circuit tool from a nearby table and ran to the first reset terminal. He tapped a sequence of buttons faster than anyone in the room could follow. Then he sprinted toward the second terminal across the deck. The officer whispered. He can't make it in time. No one can run that fast. But Evan didn't just run. He slid under a fallen beam, jumped over a broken pipe, rolled across the floor, and reached the second terminal with a burst of speed that made Lyra's breath stop. He hit the reset switch. At the exact moment the first terminal completed its cycle, both resets activated perfectly. The entire room vibrated as energy surged through the station. The lights flickered, then turned bright white. Every console stabilized. Every alarm stopped. The officers gasped. The engineers stared. Lyra covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Wait, she whispered softly, tears gathering in her eyes. You can do it again already? Her legs weakened, but this time she didn't faint. She ran toward him instead. The human who saved everyone even leaned against the terminal, breathing hard but smiling. The officers surrounded him, praising him loudly. You saved the station. You prevented a disaster. Human reflexes are incredible. But Evan looked past all of them toward Lyra. She walked slowly toward him, her eyes bright with emotion. You did it again, she said softly. You saved all of us. Evan rubbed the back of his neck. I did what anyone would do. That is not true, she whispered. No one else could. He smiled gently at her. Are you okay? She nodded. Because you are here. Her antennas softened with relief, her gentle blue glow shining brighter than ever. Evan felt a warm feeling rise in his chest. The whole station saw him as a hero, but Lyra saw him as something else, someone she trusted, someone she believed in, someone who changed her world. And Evan realized something too. He didn't want to leave her behind. Not now. The next morning, the Drifting Lantern Diner opened just as the station's artificial lights brightened to imitate sunrise. Lyra arrived earlier than usual. She wanted to make sure the ingredient machine, now perfectly working, thanks to Evan, was still running smoothly. Her antennas twitched with excitement as she checked the control screen. Every light was green. Everything was calm. Yet she felt strangely nervous. She found herself looking at the door every few minutes, waiting for someone she had only met yesterday. She wondered why. At the same time, far down the main corridor, Evan walked toward the diner with a relaxed smile. He had decided to stay on the station for a few days. Something about Lyra's kindness, curiosity, and soft spirit made him feel at ease. He didn't know why, but he wanted to see her again. Just as Evan stepped onto the walkway that led to the diner, the entire station trembled beneath his feet. At first it was a tiny vibration, then a sharp shake. Then boom, the lights flickered. Alarms began to sound through the hallways. Evan grabbed the railing as red emergency lights flashed across the ceiling. Voices filled the corridor as travelers panicked, running in different directions. A message echoed overhead, warning, power failure in main energy ring. Emergency crews report overload risk. Please stay calm and move towards safe zones. Evan's eyes widened. Power ring failure? That could shut down the whole station. He turned and ran toward the diner. Inside the dinner, Lyra had barely stepped away from the ingredient machine when the floor shook. She stumbled, grabbing the counter for support. The lights above her flickered, turning from soft white to harsh red. Customers gasped. Some dropped their trays. The chef ran out of the kitchen holding a frying pan as if it might protect him. What is happening? One miner shouted. Lyra's heart pounded. Velari people didn't handle sudden fear well. They were gentle beings who grew up in calm environments. Loud alarms, shaking floors, and shouting voices overwhelmed them quickly. The loudspeaker repeated the warning again. The chef looked at Lyra with wide eyes. If the main ring fails, we will lose gravity and air recycling. Lyra swallowed hard. Her breath felt tight. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to stay calm. That was when Evan rushed through the door. Lyra, her eyes opened instantly. Something in her chest loosened when she saw him. Evan. What is happening? She whispered. The main energy ring is failing, he said, catching his breath. If it overloads, it will shut down the entire station. The chef panicked. Engineers said it takes days to repair those circuits. Evan shook his head. We don't have days. Everyone will need to evacuate. A silence fell across the diner. Evacuation. The word made Lyra's hands tremble. Is there no other way? She asked softly. Evan looked at her, then looked at the shaking ceiling. There might be, he said. But it won't be easy. Together in the tunnels without waiting for anyone to suggest otherwise. Evan moved toward the maintenance door beside the kitchen. Lyra followed him before she even realized what she was doing. Lyra, you don't have to come, Evan said, trying to sound calm. It's dangerous. Her voice shook, but she stood firm. My people taught us to care for others. If you are helping save the station, I want to help too. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Stay close to me. The chef called out desperately. Lyra, don't go into those tunnels. It's not safe. But she didn't stop. Her steps were slow but steady as she followed Evan into the narrow maintenance corridor. The door closed behind them, muffling the noise from the diner. Inside, the maintenance tunnels were dim and filled with wires, pipes, and old metal panels. The vibration from the failing power ring echoed through every surface. Lyra walked carefully behind Evan. She tried to keep her breathing slow, but her antennas shook with fear. Are you sure you can fix it? She asked quietly. Evan glanced back at her. I don't know if I can fix everything, but I can try to stabilize it until the engineers arrive. She nodded, trusting his words even though she didn't understand much about human confidence. They reached a junction where 3 tunnels split into different directions. Evan knelt near a control panel and opened it. Sparks flew out, making Lyra jump. It's worse than I thought, Evan muttered. The overload is spreading. Lyra looked around nervously. What do we do? Evan pointed deeper into the tunnels. We need to reach the secondary conduit chamber. If I can reroute power, I might slow down the failure. She nodded again, her hands clasped tightly. As they walked, Lyra noticed something surprising. Evan seemed calm. Even though alarms echoed and the ground trembled, he didn't panic. He studied each panel, every warning light, as if he were reading a book. His calmness helped her breathe easier. At one point, the tunnel shook again. A pipe overhead burst, releasing a cloud of cold air. Lyra panicked and covered her head. Evan immediately stepped between her and the falling debris, shielding her with his body. When everything settled, he looked back. You okay? Lyra nodded slowly. Her voice was soft. You protected me. Of course, he said. I won't let anything happen to you. Her cheeks glowed faint blue again. Inside the conduit chamber, they reached the secondary conduit chamber, a small room filled with old machinery. Warning lights flashed everywhere. The main circuit board displayed a red warning. Overload risk, 87%. Evan dropped to his knees in front of the main junction. We don't have much time. Lyra watched nervously as he opened the final panel. Inside was a tangled mess of wires glowing with unstable energy. Evan, she whispered, that looks dangerous. It is, he said, voice steady. But if we don't fix this, the power ring will collapse. His hands moved fast, disconnecting wires, reconnecting them, checking voltage readings, twisting tubes, tightening screws. Lyra watched with wide eyes. She couldn't even see everything he was doing. His speed made the wires blur. This was the second time she had seen such movement from him. And again, she felt that same overwhelming mix of fear, amazement, and something warm she couldn't explain. How are you so fast? She whispered. Evan didn't look up as he worked. Humans adapt quickly. When we face danger, we move faster. Our bodies react before we think. She swallowed. We are not like that. He smiled slightly. That's okay. You're different in a good way. Her cheeks glowed again. After several minutes, Evan pulled back. Okay, I fixed the short circuits. Now we need to reroute the power. How do we do that? Lyra asked. Evan pointed to two opposite corners of the chamber. There are to reset levers. They have to be pulled at the same time within seconds of each other. Lyra blinked, shocked. Two levers, but there are only two of us. Evan stood up, flexing his fingers. I can do both. She stared at him, confused. You? But you cannot be in two places at once. He grinned. Watch me. Before she could protest, Evan sprinted to the first lever and pulled it down. Then he ran across the chamber faster than she had ever seen any being. Move and pulled the second lever before the first even finished resetting. The entire chamber HUMMED. The warning light changed from red to green. Lyra covered her mouth in shock. You did it. Again, Evan exhaled deeply. Power rerouted. The station should stabilize for now. Suddenly, Lyra felt dizzy again. She stepped backward, overwhelmed. Wait, you can do it again already? She whispered. Her knees wobbled. Evan rushed forward and caught her before she could fall. I've got you, he said gently. A quiet ending to a chaotic day, and the station's alarms finally stopped. Emergency lights faded, and the gravity stabilized. Crew members arrived to take over repairs. Evan explained what he had done. They stared at him in disbelief. A human had stopped the power failure alone? Impossible. Yet he had done it. And Lyra had seen every moment when they left the tunnels together. Lyra walked slowly, leaning slightly toward him. Her voice was soft. You saved us. Evan shrugged. Just help where I could. She looked at him, her eyes shining. Evan, humans truly are different. He smiled. Different good or different bad? Lyra hesitated, then whispered, different. Wonderful. Her antennas lowered again, a sign of deep trust. Evan felt a warmth in his chest, too. Neither of them knew it yet, but after this day, their lives would never be the same again. Lyra stayed seated for a long moment after she fainted, trying to understand the strange feeling inside her chest. Her people usually live calmly, moving through each day like soft water flowing down a quiet stream. But the human named Evan Holt was not calm water. He was a sudden wave, hitting the shore fast and with force even after the dizziness passed. Her hand still felt light, almost shaky. She watched Evan as he sat at a table near the window, waiting patiently for his food. He didn't act proud or loud. He didn't brag. He simply sat there, smiling softly, looking out at the passing ships. Lyra carried a tray with his stew, stepping slowly so she wouldn't spill. When she reached his table, she placed the bowl in front of him, but her eyes lingered on his hands, those fast, steady hands. Thank you, Evan said. Smiling up at her, she nodded, but her mind still felt crowded. I want to understand. How did you fix it so fast? Evan laughed gently. Honestly, I've fixed machines like that since I was a kid. My uncle repaired old farm equipment. He taught me to look at problems like puzzles. Puzzles? She repeated softly. Yeah, you check one part, then another until it makes sense. Her antennas tilted, showing curiosity. But your movements, they were so quick. He shrugged. Humans react fast. It's normal for us, normal. The word felt strange to Lyra. Nothing about his speed felt normal. She sat down across from him without thinking, surprising both herself and Evan. Villari workers rarely sat with customers. It wasn't forbidden, but it was unusual. I want to see, she said. Later, after work. Can you show me again? Show you? Evan blinked, then nodded kindly. Of course. I don't mind. Her shoulders relaxed a little, and she looked at the stew. Eat while it's warm. He picked up the spoon. Why don't you join me? Lyra's eyes widened. Join you? While you eat? Sure. Unless it's against the rules. She hesitated. It is not against rules. Only against habit, but she slowly pulled out the chair. Maybe today can be different. Evan smiled warmly. Different is good. As he ate, Lyra asked quiet questions. What is Earth like? Do humans always move so fast? Do machines break often there? Why do you travel alone? Evan answered every question with patience. He described Earth's green forests, wide oceans, and busy cities. He explained how humans learn to adapt quickly to survive many different environments. He told her that humans like fixing things because they always wanted to make life easier for others. His stories seemed unreal to her. Villari people live slow, peaceful lives on a quiet world filled with music and long conversations. Everything Evan described felt like wine fast, wild, and unpredictable. When the meal was done, Lyra finally stood up. Thank you for your answers. Thank you for the company, Evan replied. It's nice talking to you. She turned to leave, but paused. Please, don't disappear after your meal. I want to see how you fix the machine, Evan chuckled. I'm not going anywhere. The rumors began by the time Lyra returned to the kitchen. The chef and the cooks were whispering with excitement. We saw everything, one cook said. He fixed it like magic, another added. Did you faint again this time? The chef asked in a teasing tone. Lyra's cheeks glowed blue. Chef, it's fine, the chef chuckled. Villari faint for smaller surprises than this. But a human fixing our worst machine in minutes? He crossed his arms. That is something worth fainting about. Lyra felt warm embarrassment, but also a spark of pride that she didn't understand. Usually, she liked quiet days where nothing unusual happened. But today felt different. Alive. The doors of the diner slid open again, and a small group of customers entered. They had heard rumors, already an uncommon thing in such a short time. Is it true? One of them asked the chef. Did a human fix your machine in minutes? Where is he? Lyra's antennas twitched nervously. She didn't like attention, but she looked over at Evan. He was still sitting quietly, watching the stars. Unaware of the growing interest, he acted like he did nothing special, then impressed her even more. A talk after work later that evening. When the last customers had left and the lights dimmed slightly, Lyra approached Evan again. Now? He asked, standing up. Yes, she said, trying not to sound too eager. Now, they walked behind the counter and stood in front of the ingredient machine. Lyra stared at the open compartment, trying to understand the wires and metal shapes. Everything looked confusing to her. Evan knelt down. Okay, let me show you step by step. He pointed at each part. This wire here carries the main signal. This will help process the ingredients. This panel controls the timing. When something jams, you check these areas first. Lyra bent down next to him, her soft blue glow reflecting onto the metal. She watched closely as he moved. His hands were not just fast, they were confident. Your people must be very brave, she said quietly. Brave? Evan laughed. Why? You move without fear. You touch things quickly. You react before stopping to think. She shook her head. My people always think first. Sometimes we think so much that we move too slow. Evan thought for a moment. Maybe we're brave because we learn to solve problems fast. But sometimes humans rush too much. We're not perfect. Lyra tilted her head. Still, it is impressive. Evan looked at her with gentle eyes. You know. You learn fast too. She blinked in surprise. Me, yeah, you watch closely. You understand things. You ask good questions. Lyra had never heard such words from a stranger. Her chest felt warm again, and she didn't know how to control that feeling. Do humans always speak this kindly? She asked softly. Not always, Evan said with a smile. But I do my best. Lyra looked at the machine again. Can I try? Evan nodded. Sure. I'll guide you. She reached into the lower panel. Her movements were slow but careful. Evan's voice guided her gently. Good. Now turn that screw. Perfect. Now press that button. Yes, that one. After a few minutes, she managed to reset a small part of the system. She looked up at Evan with surprise. I did it. You did, Evan said proudly. Her heart fluttered. For the first time, she understood why humans were admired across many worlds. They didn't just fix machines, they helped others believe they could do more than they ever imagined. More eyes watching when they came out from behind the counter. A few late travelers were standing near the door. They had watched part of the lesson. One of them whispered, Look, the human is teaching her. Another added, First he fixes the diner, now he trains the staff. A third said, Humans really are unbelievable. Lyra felt shy under their attention, but Evan simply waved kindly. Just helping. The travelers smiled, impressed. Lyra noticed how easily he handled attention. Like he didn't feel pressure at all. Her people became overwhelmed easily, but Evan looked relaxed, even cheerful. She wondered how different life must feel when nothing scared you. A quiet momentous, the night grew quiet. The chef told them both they could leave. Lyra walked with Evan to the exit, feeling strangely reluctant to say goodbye. Thank you for teaching me, she said softly. Thank you for listening, he replied. She stared at him for a long moment, not sure what she wanted to say next. Her antennas slowly lowered, a Velari sign of trust. Will you return tomorrow? She asked quietly. Evan smiled. If you want me to. She nodded slowly. Yes, I do. Evan gently tapped the door panel. Then I'll be here. Lyra watched him leave the diner, his silhouette fading into the glowing walkway of the station. Her heart felt light, as if something new had entered it, something warm and bright. She whispered to herself, Humans truly are full of surprises. But she didn't know yet the biggest surprise was still coming. Evan Holt had visited many places in his life, but he had never seen a place quite like the Drifting Lantern Diner, a small restaurant floating above a busy trade route. Ships of every size passed through the window screens, cargo haulers, tiny scout pods, and even giant cruisers from far-off star nations. The diner itself looked old from the outside, almost like someone glued a few cargo modules together and added a neon sign. But for travelers who came from different corners of the galaxy, it was a warm and peaceful stop. Evan stepped inside with a tired smile, carrying a simple travel pack over his shoulder. He had been on a long journey from Earth, visiting stations one after another while helping people fix small problems along the way. He enjoyed solving things, machines, engines, tools, anything that needed quick hands and a clear mind. Humans were good at that, or at least he believed they were. Inside the diner, soft music played, the kind that mixed gentle alien instruments with a slow rhythm. The crowd was small, 3 miners from a cold moon to traders from a blue water world, and a family of tiny 4-eyed wanderers who chatted while eating colorful fruit. Behind the counter stood Lyra, the alien waitress everyone loved. Lyra belonged to a species known as the Velari. They were calm, peaceful, and gentle people. Their skin had a soft blue glow. Their movements were slow and careful, and their voices were soft like morning wind. Lyra, especially, was known for her kind eyes and patient smile. She never rushed. She never panicked. She lived like every moment was precious and should be handled with care. When she saw Evan, she blinked in surprise. Humans rarely visited this small diner, and even when they did, they usually rushed inside, grabbed food quickly, and flew away without talking to anyone. But Evan looked relaxed and friendly, not hurried like most. She walked toward him with small, steady steps. Welcome, she said in her gentle voice. Please sit anywhere you like, Evan smiled. Thanks, it looks peaceful in here, Lyra nodded. It usually is. What would you like today? He opened the menu, which flickered with floating text. Most items sounded new to him, but he trusted the place. What do you recommend? Lyra pointed at a dish with a soft purple glow. Star bloom stew. Very simple, very warm. Humans usually like it. That sounds perfect. Evan closed the menu and handed it back. Thanks, Lyra. Her antennas twitched in surprise that he remembered her name from her badge. Many customers didn't even look at it. She walked to the kitchen, but a few seconds later, Evan heard a worried voice from behind the counter. The ingredient machine is not working again. The chef groaned. We need someone to restart the main processor. Lyra sighed softly. It will take many hours, chef. We should close early. Evan raised an eyebrow and stood up. Maybe I can take a look. Both Lyra and the chef turned toward him. The chef was a heavy-built Gremlin with thick arms and a tired face. He crossed his arms and shook his head. It's very old tech, human. Even station engineers need 2 or 3 hours to understand it. Evan chuckled. Good thing I'm not an engineer, then. I'm just someone who likes fixing things. The chef didn't look convinced, but Lyra was curious. Humans were known for their energy and quick actions, but she had never seen one repair anything before. Her people often took long pauses and moved slowly, so the idea of someone fixing a machine in minutes felt impossible. Still, Lyra said, maybe we should let him try. Chef, we don't lose anything. The chef grumbled but waved a hand. Fine, go ahead, human. If it breaks more, you take the blame. Evan walked behind the counter and approached the tall, metal ingredient machine. It was covered in blinking lights, wires, and strange markings. But to him, it looked like nothing more than a messy puzzle. He rolled up his sleeves, knelt down, and opened the lower panel. Inside, he found a loose connection, some dust clogging the air filter, and a stuck wheel inside the processor. Nothing too complicated. Evan smiled to himself. Easy. He reached into his pack, pulled out a small set of tools, and got to work. His hands moved fast, checking wires, removing dust, rotating the wheel back into place. He tapped a few buttons on the manual circuit board and tightened a few screws. It took barely 5 minutes. When he stood up again, he wiped his hands on his shirt and said casually, "Try it now." The chef blinked in shock. "Try it already? You didn't even run diagnostics." "It didn't need diagnostics," Evan replied. "Just a reset and a few fixes." Lyra stood frozen. She had watched his hands move so quickly she could barely follow them. Velari people usually worked with slow precision, sometimes taking hours to understand a small tool. But this human moved with speed and confidence, like he knew exactly what to do the moment he touched the machine. The chef slowly pressed the start button. The machine hummed. Then whirred. Then glowed correctly. All the lights turned green. "It's working," the chef whispered in disbelief. Before Evan could smile, Lyra swayed. Her antennas trembled. Her eyes widened at the sight of the machine fully running again. Her mind struggled to accept it. 5 minutes? A repair that normally took hours? Her vision blurred, and then she fainted. Evan moved quickly and caught her before she hit the floor. He gently supported her back and lowered her onto a nearby chair. She was light, almost weightless, and her skin felt cool like soft mist. The chef panicked. Lyra, wake up." Evan checked her breathing. It was steady. "She's fine." I think she was just surprised. Surprised? The chef repeated awkwardly. Velari faint when something unusual happens. Their minds freeze from shock. Evan said, scratching his head. "Maybe I fixed it too fast?" The chef stared at him like he had announced he could stop time. "Too fast? Human, that repair takes teams of experts." Evan shrugged. It wasn't that complicated. The chef muttered something in his language, probably disbelief. When Lyra finally woke up a minute later, her eyes fluttered open softly. Evan leaned forward, smiling gently. "Hey, you okay?" She stared at him, confused at first. Then she remembered everything: his fast hands, the machine lighting up, the ease in his voice. "You Fixed it, she whispered. Yeah, just needed a quick touch. She slowly sat up, still dizzy. Quick? That was not quick. That was faster than anything I've ever seen. The chef crossed his arms. Human speed. Impossible creatures, all of you. Lyra's cheeks brightened with a faint blue glow, her version of blushing. She looked at Evan with wonder, like he was something rare. I didn't mean to scare you, Evan said with a warm chuckle. You didn't scare me, she replied softly. You just surprised me more than anyone ever has. The chef clapped his hands. Good, machine is working. Lunchtime can continue. Then he pointed at Evan. You, sit, eat free today. Evan laughed. Thanks, but I didn't do it for payment. Lyra stood up slowly, still adjusting her breath. Let me bring your stew, and maybe afterward, you can tell me how you fixed it that fast. Evan nodded. Sure, I'd be happy to. When she walked away, several customers who had been watching whispered among themselves, Did you see that? A human fixed it in minutes. Valari fainted easily, but still that was shocking. I heard humans do things without thinking twice. Evan ignored the whispers. He didn't care about attention. He just wanted to help. But Lyra, she kept glancing at him from across the room, eyes full of curiosity and something else, something warm and new. She had never seen a human work before, and she had definitely never fainted in front of one. Yet something told her that this strange, fast-moving human would bring more surprises into her quiet life, much more than she was ready for.